All right, 30 teams, 30 minutes. New York Knicks solo for this one again. So cut it in half, 15 minutes on the Knicks. The Knicks, to start off with, I think it all starts with the Knicks with RJ Barrett. I know that they got Obi Toppin this year, and I'll get to him quickly, but RJ Barrett is the player that I think make or breaks their season and make or breaks what they're going to be down in the future. The Giannis news came down this week, and that provides clarity for a lot of teams. I know the Knicks were one of the teams that it was rumored that he could potentially go there. So now that he's off the table, teams like the Knicks, like Miami, Toronto, can kind of focus on the future. And unlike Miami and Toronto, where they have young players and they have a history of winning, the Knicks don't have that. So I think it all starts with RJ Barrett. In my opinion, he's the highest upside player that they have there. He reminds me of Brandon Roy, someone who has, combo skills, but likes to, at the end of the day, could score. For the old heads like me, remember Brandon Roy on Portland, Brandon Roy that Ron Artest said was the hardest player that he ever had to guard. Um, I think that he could be that type of player with his ball handling ability, left-handed, unlike Brandon Roy. But I like his game. I like his feel for the game. And he seems like somebody who wants to be great. He has good size. So I think everything starts and begins with there. Then you have this Obi Toppin character that we talked about. I heard a lot about a lot of comparisons to Amare Stoudemire. And when you see him, you just see how small and slight he is. And he's an older guy. He's not a younger 19-year-old. Believe he's 22. Let me see if that's correct. So he's an older guy. So, I mean, your body can definitely fill out. You can hit the weight room. You can gain weight. 22 years old. But to me, he looks more, when I saw him, he reminded me more of Kevin Martin, Kenyon Martin, excuse me, not Kevin Martin, Kenyon, um, of Nets fame. I think he can be that type of player with maybe a little bit more offensively as far as shooting the three and things of that nature. He reminds me of that type of player with his bouncy ability. Everybody remembers Kmart was a great defender. So I think he could be that type of player for them. They're a tough team to peg because I think they have a lot of players that play the same position. You have Obi Toppin, you have Julius Randle, who put up 2010 last year, but I think he's more of an empty calories type guy. I talked about being in NBA purgatory with a team like Orlando, where you're not good enough to actually contend, but you're not bad enough to be a lottery pick. And Julius Randle is like the player version of that. Like, he's good enough to get you points, but those points don't translate to winning. For him to be a successful player, you have to give him the ball. He's not an ancillary player. He's not really a dive man, not really that great of a finisher around the rim against size. He's not a three-point shooter. So you have to heavily involve him to get production from him. But if you're heavily involved in him, you're not going to be that good. So you're in that conundrum with him. But you have him. You have Kevin Knox, who I was a big fan of playing at Kentucky, but they've tried to play him at 3. He's a 4 to me. Reminds me, I know this is blasphemy, a little bit of when I saw him in college, a Derek Coleman type player that could do it all. One of those super skilled power forwards, but it seems like more of doing it all, you get caught in that or being a tweener. And he seemed like more of a tweener in the league. But I think if you played him exclusively at 4, you could get the production out of him. But now you have Toppin, you have him, you have Julius Randle. So we'll see. This is the Tom Thibodeau era. Thibs seems to always get jobs regardless of the situation. I would have liked Mark Jackson for this job. I don't know what Mark Jackson did to get excommunicated from the league. He's obviously been blackballed. And regardless of the other things, I think one of the great things about Mark Jackson as a coach is he's someone that gets his players to believe. He imbues confidence and endurance confidence on the players that he played with. I remember Reggie Miller talking about him playing with Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson always constantly talking about, who is this dude? He thinks he's better than you. Let's go. Let's bust him up today. And I don't think it was a coincidence that he was saying Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were the best shooting backcourt of all time before the NBA public started to agree with it. He gave those players the confidence in their ability to, hey, man, shoot it from wherever you want. You're the best shooter I've ever seen. And I played with Reggie Miller. I think having a coach that has that type of confidence in you, what it does for you as a player, I mean, you can't put a monetary value on it. So when you have a team like the Knicks, where you have all these young players, you have a Knox, you have a Dennis Smith Jr., who a lot of people, when he came out in his draft, said he could potentially be the best player in the draft, but he's kind of middled in the league where we don't know exactly what he's doing. You have Kevin Knox. You have RJ Barrett. You have these young players. I think he would have helped to just give them the confidence, because in the league, everybody's talented, but it takes some time for certain players to really believe it. Not everybody's built. People talk about that Mamba mentality, but not everybody has that supreme confidence in their ability that I can do it. And I think Mark Jackson, more than anything, with a young team, I think he's great because he pushes that confidence in those players. So for a young team, I definitely think that that would have been the option that I would have went. But they went the other option, and they went with the coach that they went with, Tom Thibodeau. He seems like he has 9 lives as a coach. I mean, he's always had a baseline of success. So I'm saying that, but the last time the Timberwolves went to the playoffs, he was the coach. But that was a star-studded team. There was this thing that was going on where NBA coaches were taking these sabbaticals and taking pilgrimages across the league, and him and Washington's coach, I'm forgetting his name. And it was like, did they learn anything on these sabbaticals? Did they change? And Thibs was still ice. He still was doing his Thibs stuff. And will that work for this young team? I mean, like I said, he's always had a baseline in the playoffs, and I think the Knicks would be chuffed. I've been watching Great British Bake Off, but they would be chuffed if they got to the playoffs. So, that I guess that would be a win for them. I mentioned Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Ntilikina. They have a lot of guys where you don't want to be the team that bails on them and then they figure it out somewhere else. Dennis Smith Jr., I don't think he's really figured out the way that he needs to attack in the league. He's uber athletic, but he likes to shoot mid-range jumpers, which is just, you can shoot them, but you have to shoot them at a Chris Paul type level, Chris Paul, KD type level to, make that your bread and butter, especially with his athleticism. If he could become more of a slasher, but, at this point in his career, I do think people can improve on their skills, but I don't know if you can improve on your mindset as an offensive player, but he has a lot of skills. Frank Ntilikina, if he ever learns how to shoot, he's definitely going to be a useful player. I mean, you can never underrate defense from guards, and he's a great defender. Will the offense ever come? Who knows? So you have that as far as your guard and wing rotation. And then, they signed a handful of other players. Elfrid Payton, that's fine. Austin Rivers, that's a fine signing. Reggie Bullock, are they going to ever get any dividends from him? That's a signing that they made last season. He's a trade chip, possibly. I thought that this team was a team that you could see that John Wall would go to from Washington if the season played out, but then that Russell Westbrook trade opportunity came to pass. So I don't know if they're going to be in the market for another big game, if John Wall is going to stay in Houston long term. But this is a team, I've been looking for Blake Griffin trades. This is a team that could potentially trade for Blake Griffin, but again, you have that caveat. He plays the same position that all of their young players play. But possibly you include a couple of them in the trade. Another guy, high upside guy who we haven't really seen the dividends from is Mitchell Robinson. So will this be his year? They played a lot of Bobby Portis at the 5 last year. I saw him in summer league his rookie season and was just floored how big he was, how well he moved. So is this a year where they actually put some, time and some minutes into him playing and his production and see what they can gain from that? That's something that that interests me as well in this season, because I saw that he signed New Orleans to Will, and will Thibs go the route that he wants someone that's played in the league. But New Orleans Noel has a lot of the deficiencies that you don't like from young players. So I don't know if that's one of those signings where he's going to take the minutes from him. New Orleans Noel likes to jump to try to block every shot he gets out of position. I know that's been the frustrating thing about him throughout his career. Maybe Thibs can fix that. So as far as the most impactful player, it definitely has to be RJ Barrett. Like I said, he reminds me of Brandon Roy. What I've seen in his game, just a really skilled player, combo guard. You could see play the 1, you could see play the 2. I think that the structure that he's going to get under Thibs and have a way that the team is going to play, they're going to hang their hat defensively. I think he can thrive. I think they're going to ask a lot out of him. He's one of the only true creators on the team at the guard position. So I'm intrigued with that, what he turns out to be. The most intriguing player would definitely be Mitchell Robinson. Like I said, his size, his potential to be a defensive monster, his agility. Does he get a 2-man game with RJ Barrett? I think that those are the two pieces. And like I said, the big game is out of the Knicks sights. This year's free agency class is not going to be the greatest. Next year's free agency class, if Harden gets an extension, which he probably is going to ask for if he does get traded, it's not going to be the greatest. So if you're the Knicks, you definitely have to look forward and focus on the team that you have and how can we build blocks on the team that we have? Who are the players that can ascend? And I definitely think Mitchell Robinson has the highest upside of all the guys just because of his size and his he has good touch around the rim. You have Dennis Smith Jr., who's someone that you might have to look at as someone that could possibly be intriguing. Maybe Thibs is the coach that can get something out of him. But, he's played with other good coaches in Rick Carlisle before, and he didn't play any, show any dividends. So be interested to see what goes on with that. As far as playoff opportunities for the Knicks, regular season and playoffs, I don't know. Like Thibs, he's had, like I said, he's had that baseline where every team that he's ever coached has gone to the playoffs. So could this be a sneaky team? Could Obi Toppin, one, you'd have to think, what is their starting lineup going to be? I tried to look at it, and maybe you would start Dennis Smith Jr., RJ Barrett, Bullock for shooting, Toppin at the 4, and I don't know, Mitchell Robinson at the 5. It'll be interesting to see. There's so many questions with this team. How they're going to start the players. Are they going to stagger minutes? Julius Randle, like I said, had 2010 last year. Does he start? But he's not really the type of player that Thibs loves. I think he has some deficiencies defensively as well. I talked about his offense. So who do they start is going to be intriguing. I don't see them as a play-in team this year, but if RJ takes that leap, Mitchell Robinson takes that leap, and maybe either Ntilikina or Dennis Smith Jr. starts to hit, then you might have something. And then Obi Toppin. I don't see him as really as a rookie of the year candidate just because of the dearth of players at that at the guard position, and then the over saturation of players at his position. I don't think he's going to get the touches in the minutes, but I don't know. We'll see. So the Knicks, this Giannis signing might be the greatest thing that ever happened to them. So now, it was LeBron before, and then KD and Kyrie, and there's always some guy that they're pining for and hoping for. Now they can face forward and say, hey, this is the team that we're going to have for the foreseeable future. let's hopefully see if we can get some building blocks out of it. So that's the Knicks. 30 teams, 30 minutes. We're going to hit every NBA team, hit subscribe. Once again, we're going to be on Clubhouse on Monday before the season starts, talking about who the second best player in the league is. I think that's the best conversation right now in the NBA. All right. Get at you guys soon.